feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at Friday morning. It's May 16th. I got Wolves beat writer Jace Frederick here with me. This was supposed to be a series preview episode. The Thunder were supposed to win last night, but Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic happened, and they beat Oklahoma City in Denver last night. That means we have to wait until Sunday evening to know who the Wolves' opponent will be in the conference finals. We're going to kind of try and discuss both Oklahoma City and Denver's potential matchups in this episode. But Jace, we were texting yesterday. I think we should set the seed with how much better or worse Denver or Oklahoma City are as a matchup. I think everyone would say, you'd rather play Denver than Oklahoma City if you're a Wolves fan. But how big do you think that gap is?
If Aaron Gordon is as hurt as I think he probably is, then it's like a golf. Denver is not good if Aaron Gordon is not available. And the way that he was pulling up that hamstring at the end of the game, I know the instant thought in all of our minds is Steph Curry, obviously. And he said, I'm going to try to go in Game 7. But if you watch Game 7 and Aaron Gordon is either not out there or he is limping around like OG Anunoby did in Game 7 for the Knicks Pacers last year, then Nikola Jokic is basically playing for the Timberwolves NBA Finals hopes in my mind. Because they can't defend Minnesota if Aaron Gordon's not on the court. They have a hard enough time anyway. They can't do it if Aaron Gordon's not out there. They're just we've seen throughout the year when Aaron Gordon was out, they weren't a very good team. That doesn't mean they can't pull one game out with Nikola Jokic can go 60, 10, and 10 as we have seen firsthand. And anything can happen. But if Aaron Gordon has to miss 10 days or whatever the case may be, or is severely limited, I think that versus the healthy Thunder, it's a massive difference. I can't even put it into words, I don't think.
Yeah, right. No, that's what I was thinking. Because it's worth bringing up because even if I love Aaron Gordon too, and he makes a huge difference, but it's not completely out of the question to be hey, the best player in the NBA goes and just wins a Game 7 kind of on his own. It's not 50-50 odds or anything like that, but Jokic could just do that. And Murray was great last night. There's, as important as we're saying Gordon is, they could win a game without Gordon. And then here you are,
it's one game
2 days later against the Wolves.
Right. It's one game, and it's a team that's won a championship versus a team that has not, hasn't played in these types of environments, these types of stages with this type of pressure, So I would absolutely give Denver a chance to win even if Aaron Gordon's not out there, because frankly, they don't have as many guys that you need to defend that you desperately need an Aaron Gordon for. Denver is significantly better defensively if Gordon's out there, but it's put Christian Braun on Shea and then take your chances everywhere else. And obviously they do a lot of doubling on Shea anyway. The Thunder could go shoot 20% from three, and Jokic could dominate the game, and Denver could win. That's absolutely in play.
Let's start with Oklahoma City. That's the more likely opponent of the Wolves. I meant to look up. Do you see what the spread is on that game? How heavily favored are the Thunder?
Yeah, so I looked last night, and it might have changed. I'll check, but it was 7.5 for Oklahoma City as the spread, which is pretty significant for one game and for a Game 7. I'd guess probably hasn't moved too much. It's 7 now. It's down to 7. Okay.
So it's probably money. So probably they're saying a 70% chance that the Thunder win that game.
Yeah, right about there. Oklahoma City's minus 278. Yeah, that's right about 70-ish.
I was using those to guide my travel booking last night too, and that didn't work because the Thunder were heavily favored in that game.
Book, cancel.
Yeah. I did. Yeah, that was
same.
Game
I did the same.
Yep. I do have Denver now booked. That's a possibility. Okay, let's talk about the Thunder, and what I sent to you is just let's go back and forth with both the Thunder and Denver of just you'd call them X factors, just things that we think are important about this series as a way to begin thinking about it. What's an X factor? What's a big thought you have when you think about Wolves Thunder?
Yeah, I think it's turnovers. I think that's something that Minnesota had struggled with at certain parts of the year, and then they had done a little bit better, and certainly they did better against the Lakers, and struggled with in the latter half of that Warrior series, consistently 18, 20 turnovers a game. And that's not something you can do against Oklahoma City, because as we've seen, half court offense for Oklahoma City can be a bit of a struggle, especially if you force the ball out of Shea's hands. But this team superpowers its defense, and it's turning defense into offense. And so taking care of the ball, and Chris Finch will say that right away. Like the second if Oklahoma City becomes the matchup, he would talk about turnovers right away, because he knows how important that is to beating them. There's no it's true for everybody with the Thunder. I think it's especially true for Minnesota, who I think can make Oklahoma City's life really difficult defensively in the half court. But you have to take care of the ball and not allow the Thunder to go on these 12-point runs that are sparked by 3 runouts.
I think it's like absolutely immense. I normally, like, when I listen to other podcasts and they talk about like X factors, I listen kind of like, okay, rebounding. Okay,
yeah, right. I know.
You know what I mean? But like this one is so real, and it's number one at the top. And I think the way to look at it is Golden State last series. And after they got Jimmy, they forced more turnovers than post-trade deadline on, more than anybody else in the league. And that's what drove them to be in the number one defense post-trade deadline. And obviously that was a really big factor in the series last round. It was the case for picking Golden State there. But the thing with why this is an even bigger thing against Oklahoma City is, one, they were the number one in generating turnovers team for the entire season. So bigger sample size. That is like deeply who they are. That is like the premise of their team. But they don't turn the ball over either. And
right.
That's the difference between them and Golden State. And the Wolves turned it over too much in the Golden State series. But Golden State gave it back to them a ton.
Oftentimes, literally gave
right
it
away.
Back to them. And I understand, because Golden State was like, we can't score. We have to try to force the issue. And so they were doing it by like, they get a steal and then it'd be like, maybe that guy has half a step. Let's throw it ahead.
Right.
And it would feel like, well, you had to throw like an Aaron Rodgers dime for that to work. But then they give it right back. But out of desperation, being like, this is the only way we're going to score. I get it. But yeah, like Oklahoma City won't be as forgiving of like, you guys made a mistake here. Take it back. Try again.
They also convert off of their turnovers, because I remember every pod me and Britt were doing afterwards, I'd be like, 19 turnovers again. Britt would be like, only 10 points off turnovers,
right? Because
Golden State was also bad at that part of it, the conversion element of getting out in transition. Oklahoma City is also awesome at that part of it. We're coming hot with the turnovers thing, but that's because I think it's big. The other like eye roll 4 factors sort of thing too, but I think is really real in this series is the Wolves rebounding and 3-point shooting as kind of like the counterbalance for that. The Wolves should, as this has been a thing with the Thunder for a long time, like they have, even after adding Holmgren, adding Hartenstein and having the Holmgren-Hartenstein thing, not a good rebounding team. They're also like a team who plays like heavy in the gaps. Like you're going to be able to generate threes. They're not going to be like wide open ones, but like if you want to try and like press that crease right there, the guy's going to come over to help. And if you make a swift pass to Jaden in the corner, he catches and shoots it, like it's going to be decently open. The Wolves kind of come back in this from a 4 factors standpoint, even if they're losing the turnovers, by dominating the glass and hitting threes at a high clip, as was kind of their path to victory the last few rounds. I know the Thunder are different in many ways, and they actually are going to play big players, unlike the Lakers or the Warriors, but it's still the same thing. It's still, Rudy, like you got to be a beast on the glass to be important in this series. It's still the same thing where when the Wolves go on like a 2 for 16 streak from 3, like you're going to feel that in the same ways they did previously. So turnovers is the number one thing, controlling the ball and everything off of that. But that's a place the Wolves have a disadvantage. They make up that gap theoretically by being just dominant on the glass and continuing to hit threes at a high clip.
Yeah, the threes is interesting. I think that would be a major swing in this series in general, like both ways, frankly. The Thunder generate a fair amount of good looks, and it's guys who like hit threes at a decent rate throughout the regular season, but it oftentimes is guys who are a little bit streaky in that regard, and it's not really something they've been able to rely on much, especially like in this series against Denver. Denver, a lot of games, has almost like outshot Oklahoma City in that regard, and I think it's a big reason why this series is going to a 7th game here. And that was definitely their downfall against Dallas last year. It's younger guys who have a bit of streaky shooters trying to have to hit big shots repeatedly over the course of a game, and it's why they lost a year ago. It's why they're in trouble now. I think it would be a big swing in this one. You just see it like league wide, and people will say, "Oh man, the Wolves haven't shot well in blank game, blank game, blank game." Like every team can pretty much say that. It's tougher to rely on role player jump shooting in the playoffs. It just seems like it is. I don't know if it's a pressure thing or whatever the case may be, but it fluctuates a lot more than you're used to over the course of an 82 game season. And that's going to be a big impact. I wouldn't be surprised at all if you go through the games of in a Wolves Thunder series and go, I don't know who shot better from three. I don't know who shot better from three.
Yeah, right. I do think the Wolves have some upside there. Like I think just because, Rudy, given how the first two rounds they were kind of guarding him, what his size was, like I don't think outside of a couple games was he like that big of a force on the glass. Like I think he could be more of a force in this series. And this is me being optimistic finding things, but like the 3-point thing, like Dante too, like what, like can Dante have like you shot 7 threes a game and made 42% of them in this series? Like we wouldn't have said that was crazy at all a month ago that he would do that in a playoff series, but he hasn't been doing that at all in the playoffs. So I just think I just really think the turnovers thing is a big issue and a big gap, because I don't really believe in the Wolves' ability to manage that themselves. And that Oklahoma City is going to put the pressure on. So this gap needs to be filled. I just do think it could be filled by guys being better 3-point shooters that haven't been. Like, can Naz give you 4 or 5 good 3-point shooting games in the series? Can Dante do that? Can Nikhil not be like 21%? Like, they have not been dominant in these factors thus far this postseason, yet I believe there's like more meat on the bone there for sure, that they absolutely could be better at that in this series.
Yeah, and you talk about Rudy, and it's been the case, frankly, for fair amounts.
Fascinating series for him, right?
Yeah, people point out that Rudy, I think, played in like one of the Thunder games. And I don't know if that necessarily hurt Minnesota, because you look at the things and it makes sense to be like, well, Rudy, like rebounding, the Thunder struggle to rebound. But Minnesota is, as we've seen in these series, they're just a little bit easier to game plan for. Like if you truly execute, like, hey, we're going to kind of leave Gobert's outlet there as a pass, but then as long as we're paying half a measure of attention to him where we can get in there and pressure, then once he catches the ball, like he'll get the catch and then we'll make him have to try to finish. Like it's not a bad bet. Certainly has some games in the first quarter where it's like, well, okay, a couple nice finishes from Rudy, but it's like over the course of a 7-game series, you don't hate it. Because it can go multiple ways for you, and it can kind of limit a lot of the things Minnesota does well. Minnesota played pretty well offensively against the Thunder, but a lot of it was like playing smaller, playing with like 5-out kind of offense, and hurting them that way. Like it was like Naz a lot of times like out there as the 5. And that's obviously a button they can press. It's just not one that they have very much. So that will be the interesting thing of like, is Rudy dominant enough on the glass where you're like, nope, he's a big asset, he has to be out there? Or is it another one of those games like we've seen plenty of games in these series where it's like Rudy played 25 minutes, and I could easily see this going that way as well.
I rewatched the game that Rudy played in yesterday. That was
the first one of the season.
Okay. So maybe I'll just set that. So Rudy played in the New Year's Eve game, and then they played the Thunder weirdly 3 times in 4 games right around
All-Star.
Yeah, All-Star trade. Yeah, I was gonna say trade deadline, but it was All-Star, and Rudy was out for all 3 of those games. That was like in his gap of time where he missed 10 games. It was also, I started watching the second game, which I think was February 13th. I only got like through the first quarter, but that game was no Gobert, no Randle, and no DiVincenzo. It was right in that pocket of time when they were all hurt, and that was the game the Wolves, again, I didn't rewatch it all, but that's the game that they won like at home. It wasn't the 25-point comeback game. Right. Like they won with Naz and Jaden in the front court there. But to the Gobert point, in that game, the New Year's Eve game, the Wolves did their normal starters: Gobert, Randle, Edwards, Conley, McDaniels, and the Thunder didn't have Holmgren back yet. So it wasn't like, to that end, yeah, Rudy played, but like the Thunder didn't have the look of their front court. So Gobert guarded Hartenstein, but like Julius was on Lou Dort, Ant was on J-Dub, Conley was on Case and Wallace, McDaniels was on SGA. I mean, I'm sure at some point that lineup will be out there and those two guys will be playing each other, but that's like when you start lining up the chessboard as, again, this is what happens with every time we're kind of previewing a series of like, oh yeah, like this guy didn't play in that game.
Right.
But that was especially true in this Thunder Wolves series because it was just weird of not having Chet at the beginning, and then for those 3 games, that's when Chet came back. So I don't have a great feel for. I tried to like watch Gobert and Hartenstein. Like that'll be a battle on the interior there. Obviously, you're watching Hartenstein right now, and he's really fighting Jokic, but it's at least like a matchup where you can see a world where you're like, oh yeah, Gobert was a problem for Hartenstein, and I'm not saying that's like for sure going to happen, but it doesn't, like if Gobert's going against Jokic or something like that, you're like, no, this isn't fair. There's a world here where Gobert comes out of this series, I think, as if it is the Thunder, as the best center in this series, when I think, like, generally speaking, those two guys are equal caliber 5s in the league.
I honestly think if I was the Thunder, that they might just put Hartenstein on Randle.
Could be.
Because I think Julius could kind of get anywhere he wanted against Chet. And obviously to Chet, it always is like, oh, you're going to move me. Okay, then like, let's see when you are 6 feet from the rim here and like I have my length, like I can still impact your shot. But yeah, they can obviously do both, but Hartenstein obviously knows Randle's game as well. So it would they would probably flip back and forth between the two, frankly. Where from Minnesota's perspective, I'm sure Randle would guard Holmgren because they don't want Rudy playing that far away from the basket. So,
but even that one's weird. Like, Jaden has always guarded Chet when he's played too, and I know it was like smaller, but
and Rudy wasn't out there in those,
Yeah.
So like because they used to have Rudy on Giddey, So who's the Giddey? Because that's an obvious, rover for Gobert there, and you can do whatever you want defensively. I don't know if maybe you try it on Dort. I guess.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Then you're setting yourself up for the Terrence Mann thing, but like maybe that's still the.
But just like teams put pay little attention to Gobert, and they're like, yeah, one game it'll kill us, and the other games it won't. You do the same thing with Dort. Like some game he'll make 5 threes, and then next game he'll go 1 for 10. So you just kind of play the odds on it if you think that it helps you out immensely guarding everybody else. And
you also don't have to do it for the whole game. Like Utah kind of did because they had no other options of what to pivot to there. Let's grab our first break here. Today's show is brought to you by Your Home Improvement Company. And if you have some home improvement needs this spring or summer, we'd love it if you checked out yourhomeimprovementco.com. They have buy 2 windows, get 2 free deal that we always tell you about, 30% off all bathroom renovations. But really, whatever the project is around your home, you're going to have competitive offers from Your Home Improvement Company. They also offer great financing deals, zero money down, 0 interest, 0 payments until 2026. So if you just know that you are going to have a home improvement project that you're going to be working on this summer and you want it to be done cost effectively and performed by certified professionals, we'd love it if you considered Your Home Improvement Company. Again, the website there is yourhomeimprovementco.com. or you can call them at 866-777-YHIC. Your Home Improvement Company, where it's your home made better. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks, and I was looking at some Game 7 stuff for the Thunder and Nuggets game. I had Michael Porter Jr., more than 1.5 made threes. Come on.
I'm laughing at the other one, though.
I know. I did this for you. Me and Jace love Aaron Wiggins.
And then Mark Dagnall does not.
He does not, dude. He does not. I actually started this by going like, all right, I'm going to do like a demon on Wiggins. He's going to have a big game. And like, let's see if that side goes. Then I was looking at the numbers. I'm like, no, man, he's just not going to play. And I don't get it. And if he didn't play last night when they needed offense,
when Shea was in foul trouble,
awful, like, how does he get 7.5 points plus rebounds plus assists? I actually like, I don't see a path to it because he's so clearly like Caruso's going to play a ton off the bench. Casey Wallace is going to play a ton off the bench. They're going to play Jay Will off the bench. There just like isn't a path to Aaron Wiggins playing a lot. And I just put that on there because of you. There was also Russell Westbrook, more or less than 2.5 rebounds. Oh yeah, here it is. I mean, Russ is a nightmare. But that dude is going crazy in a game 7, and that craziness will hurt them. But I also liked him to have more than 2.5 rebounds. I didn't tell you to pick any, but
I like one tonight. Derek White over 20.5 points.
Yeah, I like that one too. Where I can't even find my thing here. So if we put those all together,
you probably just have the filter of just that game. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go. There
so
it is. Everybody likes it.
Yeah, it's popular. If all 4 of those hit, that'd be 10x on your money. If you did just do it like a $5 lineup, 5 to win 50 right there, you can make it a flex lineup. So 3 or 4, right? But it's always fun to play. And today's Flex Friday, so you can do a lineup for up to $35 that if it doesn't hit, you'll be refunded that $35 in promo money in your account. If you're going to play Prize Picks, you should always do a lineup on Fridays to get that protected play. If you don't have an account, promo code Dane at prizepicks.com or on the Prize Picks app. Jace, we started talking about Chet a little bit. Excuse me, but I think that's just a whole X factor in this game for me, or this series potentially against the Thunder, due to the fact that, not just due to the fact that we haven't seen him against them, but he just really, to me, is like, he's a ceiling of this team.
I agree
both ways, and is kind of the protection against, if J-Dub isn't giving them enough, or if Shea needs a little bit more. I mean, Chet is extremely, extremely talented, and just a piece we haven't really seen in this. And I'm very interested in him specifically in this series. And I kind of know the rest of how this will all match up, or have an idea, but the Chet portion is new, because when they played him, he did play in 2 of those 3 games in that February pocket, but he had literally just come back from
the one at Target Center was very soon, and it was not pretty. It was like, this guy looks like he hasn't played basketball in a long time. That is exactly what it looked like. Yeah. You mean mostly offensively, I guess, in terms of like the ceiling?
Mostly offensively, but I do,
I mean, we know the impact he has defensively,
but also like specifically, you can get funky with him. Like you could put Hartenstein on Randle, and now Chet's doing the lurking thing as he's been doing in the Nuggets series. I mean, you have versatility to his defense, but yeah, I'm more thinking about it like offensively of, is this a guy who can give you 25, in games effectively? I don't think he'll do that every game. I do think, but like the question is it going to be 2 games, or is it going to be 5 games that Chet's awesome? And I think that's what makes him like pretty obviously an X factor.
I think what's interesting with him is when I watch the Thunder, so many times it's like Chet had 20. It's like, when? Right. And it's totally like, because he just finds buckets. Like, he finds buckets around the rim. He plays great off the catch. Like, in some ways he looks like Jaden out there half the time. I don't feel like they've like incorporated him enough as like a big game plan part of their offense. And I think that's to come in his career. But you can just see like the skill sets of like, oh, he's playing off the catch here, and like he got by on the first step, and he's so long that it can be 2 steps and a dunk. Like he is a very big weapon in that way, where if you like don't respect the 3-point shot, like you can live with that, but he can hit it at an okay rate if you give him the space to get it off. He's just a funky offensive player where it's like, we have to pay attention to him, but we don't have to like necessarily game plan for him. Right. But he can hurt us, like he's a weird piece in that way, where you look at him and it's like, oh, he could be their number 2 scorer. It's like, yeah, it's hard to lean on him, especially with the way that they play with him, but you just will look at the box score and be like, yeah, he was their number 2 scorer.
Right. Yeah. No, it's he's a real, I don't want to say random, but like hard to predict variable in this, because
it's very Jaden to me. Like, I mean, where you're like he's playing off the catch and whatnot. Oh, he hit 2 corner threes, and like, oh, you look in transition, it's like, oh, he scored 26, and then the next night it's like he had 12. And it doesn't necessarily all feel that different. A lot of times it's a byproduct of the offense.
Do you have another one?
I just put no, because I I put 3-point shooting on my list, and then we got to that. So,
well, let's do.
I mean, I put Randle on mine because I think,
that was mine. Yeah.
Okay. Because he's been awesome, obviously. Like, he's been incredible, and like he was, taking Draymond Green 1-on-1 and winning that matchup, and there just was very little that they could do with him, and you can tell it was almost like a helpless feeling. And I know the Lakers felt that too. The Thunder part. For Randle, it's like just sustaining. It's just consistency. It's like, can you do it another round? That's just hard to do in general in the playoffs. And then B, like the Thunder can kind of match with length, with a little bit of length and size, in that these are legitimate centers and like centers who can move a little bit too. So like a Hartenstein can shuffle with you and have like the length to bother. So it's a different, maybe more difficult challenge for Randle. The way he's been playing right now, I wouldn't doubt him against anybody really, but I do think it's going to be a little bit less of like you can get wherever you want to get to, because right now it's like he knows it's in these series. It's been like, I'm getting here, I'm doing this turn, I'm getting that body bump so I can feel you and playing off that contact. I don't know if there would be just quite as much of doing whatever you want with the same ease against OKC.
Oh, it won't be. It will not be anywhere near as easy as it was against in the first two rounds. And I don't mean to say that to take away from what he did, because I think he was great within the ease of the matchups that he found in rounds 1 and 2, and then frankly, once he got rolling, great against Draymond Green and Jimmy Butler, who I wouldn't have, who are like Oklahoma City caliber defenders there. What's interesting to me about Randle is like they could put a lot of different guys on him.
Yeah, you could put Dort on him,
You could put Caruso on him. I was thinking just like
sure.
Caruso, as they put him on like Jokic. Like they're not afraid to have him slide up positionally, situationally. And so it really ties into the turnovers part of this, which I think is such a big thing. And watching that first game, like they just were like, all right, trying to do some of those point forward possessions with Julius, like Rudy defensive rebound, hand it to Julius, start
they
trying to
walk
J-Dub
on him a fair amount. Is that, do I remember that?
Okay. J-Dub, they had like Cason Wallace was on him for weirdly a part of that game, and he was just like picking him up full court and ripping it. It's like there's a lot of different guys that are going to attempt to push the buttons that lead to high turnover Randle games. And so much of Randle's effectiveness of his offensive game, right, is about penetrating the opponent's defensive shell, right, and getting in there into a situation where he's in an advantage one-on-one, or he's, the defense is scrambling and they're bringing two onto him. It's just the hardest defensive shell in the NBA to crack is this Thunder defense, and it's going to be a lot about Randle's ball control. And not, getting into like kind of like the patty cake dribble sort of thing on the, the perimeter where somebody loses is like, no, I'm just going to try and save this dribble here. And then it gets stolen and goes the other way. There's a lot of that in that Thunder game that I watched.
There's a lot of that in every Thunder game you watch. Like you watch Denver and it's like, oh, wow, they won this game, and they do. But then at the end, it's just like, okay, it's the try to dribble 5 times without turning it over challenge,
right.
and there's a lot of guys who can't do it. Jamal Murray, like we've seen the Wolves do this to him, but it's like you get aggressive and handsy, and all of a sudden you have the ball.
Right.
So that's not only for Randle, that's for Mike Conley, that's for everybody. Like it's tough, man.
Like when Nikhil's in that backup point guard, bring it up, like they're putting Wallace or Caruso or whoever on him,
and they're gonna make his life hell. And
so it's just, again, the big picture. Just so much of it is going to be about like ball control and also and I think to Randle this part's important too. Is like you're going to turn it over sometimes. Is that going to psychologically get in your head that you turned it over like the previous possessions or 2 of the 3 previous possessions? Because they need him to like. He can't deviate too far away from what he's been in these last 2 rounds. And I'm not saying I expect him to. I mean, he's blown me away these playoffs to the point where I'm expecting him, honestly, largely to solve a lot of this. Yeah, right. Find a way. That's exactly the way to push it. But it is, if there is an element of skepticism still surrounding Randle, it's like, what does it look like when it doesn't work for a while? Because that was game 1 against the Lakers. That was game 1 against the Warriors, where it wasn't comfortable initially. He's having some turnovers. He's feeling it out, and then he gets in his head. Julius does have part of that to his game. Hopefully this confidence that he has just kind of pushes him through that first turnover, second turnover, whatever it might be. Because right now, this Wolves team is as dependent on him offensively, it feels like, as it even is Ant.
Yeah, and a lot of the times when Ant's doing things, it's these flurries where it's like, oh wow, like tough hit from three there, like big three there, and there hasn't even been quite as much of like breaking down the defense and playing off of it. It has been so much Randle dictating what they do. I do think like there were plenty of times in that Golden State series where I thought, okay, Randle is the perfect person to lean on here because like this methodical style of play in which that's a little bit more controlled, and you're just slowing the pace down. And even if he misses, like you're in a pretty good space to all get back.
Right.
That was like their best basketball in that series. And I do think if you get too methodical against OKC, now it's like they're all there and the help's all there, and you have to be good so many times that that's when the turnovers can almost fluctuate. Like it's not as much like out of control.
Risks.
Yeah,
they're like, we know it's third down and you're passing.
Yeah,
like,
correct.
We're blitzing. They are very opportunistic.
So if you get yourself in any type of spot where you're like they know what your options are in that situation, now it's like easy to look bad because they can absolutely put you in those spots. So like that's why when there wasn't like no Randle or anything, like when it was a lot of Terrence Shannon and whatnot, the Wolves, Terrence Shannon only wants to play in transition, like, and that's where they were attacking in a way in which, frankly, like OKC was rarely set, like it was a lot of that type of basketball, and it worked out really well for him. And Julius Randle obviously is oftentimes a major proponent of that style as well. I think like the offense will probably have to come a little differently from Minnesota, and that it will have to be like push it, get out, come on, because I think if you get in this shell, if you allow them to set that up, it would just well be more difficult than it was against the past two opponents.
That's my last one on OKC too. Is the other side of it is I think the Wolves defense makes it tough for Oklahoma City.
Agreed.
And I think it's been really interesting how this Denver zone has worked, and just like the volume of zone in the playoffs overall, and even if we've seen it against the Wolves too, right? It's like these zones that are designed to test the opposing offense's like weak points, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know what that's looked like for the Wolves of like, all right, this tests the Wolves' ability to read the floor and like quick decision-making discernment, which is a weakness of theirs. And it's why they often get bogged down in zone and have throughout the regular season, throughout the playoffs. I think this Denver zone does the same thing to Oklahoma City, but in a different way, in that it highlights their like quote unquote weakness, which is their secondary, their number two guy, like the second guy to be able to attack the opposing defense. If you're like playing zone as Denver is and loading up on Shea, then you need that release valve, and you need J-Dub to be able to go and puncture the defense. And so now he has to be like this guy who he has to be the guy who is hurting the Denver defense, and he can't do that consistently. I know the Wolves won't play like a ton of zone against them, but I think the Wolves in drop often kind of function like a matchup zone, and they will be in drop in this series, with Rudy, because that's just kind of how you often play. I mean, you're not going to just give Shea 15 footers, but you're going to ask them to like kind of come in this way, make Shea contest it there, swing, have somebody else attack. And it's going to test Oklahoma City's ability to have a guy other than Shea to be the guy who's hitting the gaps and doing that. And, obviously last night's fresh on my mind. I really like J-Dub, but when he was asked to do that last night, that was a problem. And I think if that's a problem in a game against the Wolves, and the Wolves defense is on point, I think the Wolves win that game. I think Oklahoma City needs that second guy offensively, and the Wolves defense will make it tough.
Yeah, this is two playoffs in a row in which J-Dub has not been particularly impressive or like met the moment. And he frankly has often struggled against Minnesota as well, when they have like, whether that be when he's trying to guide the second unit without Shea. And I know that those minutes can be few and far between in the playoffs, especially if Oklahoma City needs it to be, but he has struggled in those spots. And, like last night was terrible. I mean, it was almost like is your confidence shot as a player? Like when you miss just a wide open transition layup with 5 minutes to play, totally. Off of a steal, and there's really not much in terms of pressure there. It's just like you feel like nothing's going for you. I can't get out of my head like the Wolves in that 25-point comeback or whatever. Remember, Ant wasn't even on the court for that, and it was entirely built out of basically throwing the double at Shea right at the top of the court and getting off the ball and saying, okay, and just watching one open three after another clank for OKC and getting transition off the clank threes and going the other way. Like don't think that's not a button they'll push a few times in the series. Should this matchup occur, I absolutely think there will be many times where they'll be like, let's make everybody else beat us, and particularly at Target Center. Let's make everybody else beat us and play the odds off of that, because so often it is like, yeah, okay, decently open corner three. Guess what? If you miss it, we're probably getting to go the other way pretty quickly here. And so it's not just like you're shooting 25%. It's like now we're probably getting 20 fast break points off of that if you have a poor shooting night on those as well.
I think a big part of the J-Dub thing too is that I think that's who Ant will be guarding, and the degree to which Ant is stressed defensively, I think, is a huge corollary to the Wolves, success. I think largely Ant guarding Austin Reeves and Pods in the first two rounds, like, did a great job, and those guys were largely removed from those series. But you felt it in the games, the rare game or rare pocket of time when Reeves got going a little bit, or in game 5 when Pods got going a little bit. And I just think Ant is going to have a whale of a task offensively in this series, going against the best defense in the league, where it makes you think about, like, okay, how much responsibility does he have defensively? And how much is he going to be able to be effective there too? Or is it going to be, some of those like 70% effort defensive possessions that you see from Ant, or we often saw at the beginning of the games in the Warriors series, and then he locked in. I'm not sure he has that margin for error if you're getting good Jalen Williams in a game or in that series. I just a huge part of this series is, Jaden on Shea, trying to survive that as best you can, but not letting the surrounding pieces hurt you. And the number 2 piece is J-Dub. And that's, I get a little worried about Ant's ability to manage that, but I do just think back to, previous series, and I'm like, Reeves didn't play well. Pods didn't play well. Jamal Murray didn't play well. Like last year, largely Ant's matchups have done better than my frustration with watching it has said. I just think that's a big one there too. Just Ant J-Dub.
Yeah, I agree with you. But in the same vein, it is like Ant is a good one-on-one defender. It oftentimes is like when he gets lost or just like losing a little less attention to detail, and it's like, hey, nope, you didn't do the game plan detail at all. That you gave him exactly what we can't give him, and then he'll look and be like, oh yeah, you're right. Like throw a hand up or whatever. But I think that's kind of the case for Oklahoma City. Is like, even if Ant makes mistakes, like, can Jalen Williams rise to the occasion 4 times out of 7 or whatever the case is needed? Because the answer has looked like a no these last 2 years. And certainly he's a young player or whatever, but like, some guys aren't meant to be number 2s on championship teams, and that's just kind of the role that he's in right now with their roster. And maybe it is like just too outsized for him on this kind of stage. And we'll find out. That'll be a big thing. Probably we'll find out on Sunday. It'll give us some good evidence of that. Like if he plays poorly again against Denver, then now the Nuggets have a chance. Where if you say, hey, J-Dub actually had a really good game, like, I don't know, 9 for 17, 25 points, or whatever, I'd be like, okay, Oklahoma City won. They need that to be a team that can win game 7 and 2 more rounds. So I think Minnesota's probably like, okay, yep, Ant on that guy. He's not going to like blow by Ant on any stretch. He's not going to get any easy one-on-one buckets for confidence. It's going to have to come like, even if Ant like was a little lackadaisical, it's like, okay, hit that 16-footer or whatever the case may be. So I don't think that works too much against Minnesota's favor. I would be super interested. Like you talked about that. We talked about that zone at the end of that massive comeback game, like how often they do go to that, especially if Shea gets going in these series, because Denver's thing has been like, take away Shea and make other people do it. And that's kind of been the way that a lot of teams have went, and it's looking not like the worst strategy.
No, it's not. And I think the Wolves have a lot of different things that they can throw at Denver from their defense standpoint. And it's a reminder that the Wolves defense is very good. It's very, very good, and sometimes we get a little obsessed about the opposing defenses and stuff like that, but they, just as much as, we're talking about the Wolves offense being concerned about the Wolves offense finding their effectiveness against that really good Thunder defense. Like the Thunder podcasts are saying the same thing, about
the Thunder podcasts are talking about Game 7.
Yeah, that's true. Will be. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. So let's move on to Denver. If Denver does, I think we gave it a fair possibility at the top there. Like, I am not ruling out Jokic just going nuts and doing it. And if he's, if God damn it, these guys can cut to the basket and Christian Brown could just like catch it and lay it in, like if they can finish that, if you could spray it out and, Strother hit some threes like he did last night or whatever, like Jokic is going to need a little bit of help. But if you get, if he gets that help from his passing, and guys are able to convert around his scoring, because I think his scoring will be there. Yeah, they absolutely have a chance to be playing the Wolves on Tuesday in Denver.
That Strother thing, like watching that in the fourth quarter, that is exactly like you talk about the 3-point shooting. It's like, okay, they had a guy who knocked down a couple open corner threes. Oklahoma City missed some good looks. And now like there's a 9-point swing right there. And guess what? Like in a super defensive series like Minnesota, Oklahoma City, like it looked pretty insurmountable last night. It would absolutely look insurmountable in the West Finals if it's OKC, right. Minnesota, and it's Nikhil or Mike or Dante or whatever hitting those. Well, Dort and Cassim Wallace are missing theirs. Like that is just a major swing point, as we've seen.
I don't know, man. If I'm Oklahoma City, I'm like, man, go ahead, play Strother again.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm not like, but because okay, on the road in Game 7, go ahead and do it. But if Denver might not have a choice, frankly,
they don't.
Especially if we assume Gordon either can't play or will be severely limited.
Well, let's call that the first obvious X factor against Denver. If the Wolves play them, it's the chasm in depth and effectiveness is very real in that. And I don't think the Wolves bench has been awesome this postseason. You're not like, whoa, they're coming in rolling.
No,
but if I'm sitting down looking at a Nuggets Wolves matchup, that's the Wolves' third star in it is Ant, Randle, and then Naz Reid against whoever, Zeke Naji or whoever they decide to have to play to counter the Wolves size. Or I know we're not breaking any news here, but that's a clear X factor against Denver is the Wolves' ability to get it deeper in their roster in ways that Denver has not shown the ability to be able to do so outside of Jokic.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it. Like Denver can play with anybody when it's got its top 5, and then is largely just leaning on maybe up to 20 minutes from Russell Westbrook, especially with Michael Porter Jr. like banged up and the effectiveness is come and gone with that shoulder. And then, 14 minutes of Peyton Watson. And they're like, and that's it. Like that's all we do. We got our best guys, and that's who we can beat you with. And we don't have anybody beyond our best guys. Right. And Julian Strother was like a pull it out of a hat and be like, oh my God. This was the lottery ticket. We just won it. And that's about it. Like over the course of 7 games, like it wouldn't be enough. I don't know, probably like 5 or 6, frankly. And they especially because like Aaron Gordon is their backup center. Like they don't want to have to go to DeAndre Jordan. Like Aaron Gordon plays the backup center minutes. He is their physicality. He and Christian Brown are their perimeter defense. Like he is the fill-in of so many holes for them. So it's not just that they lose one guy, it's that they lose the guy that provides basically everything for them,
and for the non-Jokic minutes.
Like, exactly. He is out there backup center, and he frankly, like they run a lot of the stuff through him. Like he is a big part of the offense and the defense when he's out there in those minutes, and even like the Wolves, like it is a guarantee. Like you can log it up. Like if Denver played Minnesota, it would have to be Christian Brown on Anthony Edwards and Aaron Gordon on Julius Randle, and that is the only way in which Denver can defend Minnesota. And we saw, I think, in the game where Aaron Gordon missed at target center, like that was like some of the easiest offense. I think the Wolves had like offensive ratings for individual guys in like the 150s in that game. Like it was insane because they just can't defend it. Like Peyton Watson is just a rim protector, like they don't have defenders. So they can't afford to play without Aaron Gordon. I think that would show up on Sunday if he can't go against Oklahoma City, but it would definitely show up over the course of the series against Minnesota.
How do you think they guard Jokic if the Wolves match up with them?
I don't. Trying to think, what did they do in the season?
They just said Gobert. Guard him. Okay. It was not the Randle. I mean, well, it ended up being remember Rudy in the 60-point Jokic triple-double game, Rudy fouls out, and then it's just Julius on him, and
Right.
he's in single coverage. But
well, they did have that ant possession in like the last 10 seconds of overtime or something where Jokic took like 3 dribbles and Ant just totally gave space all the way until he got to the rim and then he scored. It was like,
I totally remember. It literally just rolled down. It's like it's like when somebody's bowling and they just like put the ball down on the ground and just like roll it. That's what Jokic did to himself. And Ant was like, and
he scored. You got me that time,
They admitted it in the locker room after that game. They're like, we were honestly just hoping he missed. And I'm like, Ant, I could tell. I could tell on that possession.
That was like when people are like, wow, look at Denver's clutch time offense. I was like, well, I mean, I can coach that clutch time offense. Like, go get him, buddy.
Mitch said in the post-game press conferences that we put Ant on him for a couple possessions. That was a bad idea. That's like one of the first things he said afterwards. So we're not. Anyways, what last season, and it was a large part of the success. Everybody knows this. They put Cat on Jokic. They put Rudy on Gordon, and that meant Rudy wasn't really guarding Gordon. He was there to help all over the place. We haven't seen them do that this season, even though I think Julius has shown chops to be able to guard bigs. I'm not ruling that out as a possibility, but it's not something they went to often during the regular season. And I also just think Aaron Gordon is not a giddy right now.
No, Aaron Gordon is not a giddy.
I don't know if you can even do that. Like, no,
if Gordon's out there, I don't think you can do that. If Aaron Gordon's not out there, I think you can do that. If Peyton Watson's playing like a lot more minutes, then now he is a very legitimate lurk option.
Absolutely. So it just then becomes like, all right, Rudy, like it's you, and you gotta manage this, to some extent. Need you to not foul out of the game. Need you to make it difficult on Jokic and contain him to some level of reasonable efficiency. If it's one-on-one that way, it's gonna be different. And it's why I would just caution anybody who is saying like, hey, the Wolves beat them last year and they had an answer for Jokic. You're absolutely right. They beat them last year and they had an answer for Jokic. They had a different team and they played them a different way. And I still think the Wolves would like beat the Nuggets. For the offensive reasons that you highlighted there of like, I don't think the Nuggets can guard the Wolves, but I don't think the Wolves can guard the Nuggets in the same way that specifically Jokic, in the same way that they did a season ago.
Yeah. Even when it's they definitely gave Jokic problems and they beat him that way. It's like, dude had some awesome games. Like, he had some games where he struggled, but like game 5 was like, oh my God, like this is unbelievable.
It's about the Wolves being able to stop the other guys. They shut off Porter Jr.'s water and they shut off Murray's water, and that's why they can beat the Nuggets even if Jokic gives you 60.
And with this team, it's that even if Jokic gives you 60, it's like, okay, but how many points did Minnesota score? And it's a lot, and it's and Minnesota can score in a lot of different ways because they can pretty much do whatever they want against Denver. That has been the case. And like maybe Denver's defending at a higher level. I don't know. It's tough to gauge against different opponents who just don't present the same problems, frankly. So it's hard for me to see the way in which Denver would all of a sudden like have an answer for Ant, especially like in the pick and roll and whatnot. But maybe who's to say, but I'm telling you, the only solutions that you can think of for Denver all involve Aaron Gordon. Like, and I know we don't have like a health update sitting here today, but it seems really rare to see somebody pulling at their hamstring and barely moving at the end of a game and then being like, yep, he's out there Sunday. Yep. He'll be there for game 1 of the West Finals. He'll be good in the series. It's just,
we literally just went through this with hamstrings. Right. It's not, it's like the one type of injury that like, if Aaron Gordon would have like,
sprained an ankle,
his ankle bad yesterday, I'd be like, yeah, he'll probably play in game 7 and he'll, and then he'll play in the next series too, even if, and maybe he doesn't guard Ant then, and they're trying to, it's the one type of injury that, as we saw with Steph, that you can't really push there. So that's Aaron Gordon is the biggest X factor in this.
Literally, I would be like, if he was playing, I would be like, 65% chance of winning, 60, 65, somewhere there. That's where I would put it. Not like in the Vegas odds.
That feels high.
Yeah, it is, but I mean, they just beat them so many
Confident,
times that I really do believe in that matchup in general. I think like the precursor Vegas odds were like Wolves minus 125, which tells you like 55% chance.
Wow.
But without Aaron Gordon, I would put it at like 90. I mean, I really don't see how Denver could win a series if Aaron Gordon couldn't play the first 4 games or whatever. Like I don't see that. You know, I know people get like intense about that. Like you never know with Jokic, blah blah blah.
Right.
Just from having seen these matchups, from knowing just how pivotal he is to defending Minnesota, and like you said,
dude, and knowing that Murray,
and
that Murray, you can't rely on Murray to be what he was last night against the Wolves. You just can't.
Right.
I mean, he'll have a game, I'm sure.
Yep.
But like, you cannot, if there's no Gordon, Murray's got to give you a lot. And Murray does not give the Wolves a lot. Was it like 25 times these teams have played each other in the past 3 years or whatever that crazy stat is?
Sure.
How many of those games have you been like, yep, Murray was kind of a problem there? Like 3?
Yeah,
I don't know.
1 and 2 in the year when Jane was out. It was Nikhil. And then he had some good target center games last year.
Sure.
In the first half of game 7 and then died out after that. But yeah. He is a good playoff player. He certainly does rise to the occasion. But Minnesota just gives him problems that sometimes he doesn't have answers for. Like he has to be feeling it to get his against Minnesota because it's often not easy. And he can do it sometimes when it's not easy. But yeah, it's hard to do that consistently.
I know this is like just tied to the depth thing, but I don't. It's like Denver's more likely to get hurt. And I was putting this together.
You saying that because they've already been hurt?
No. I'm saying because I was putting this together yesterday before the game, and I was just like, I don't know. Like, if somebody I don't feel confident that Jamal Murray plays in all 7 games. You like in a healthy way. I don't know.
I mean, they literally went game 7 of one series, played again 2 days later. Another 7 games, they would play again 2 days later.
Yeah.
Like they're not getting any break. And it is a team and they have no depth. They just it is what it is. Like the playoffs are such. You see it every year more and more. People talk about the games of the regular season. Part of the thing is like how the playoffs are just like, okay, go again, travel, go again of these big physical games. Like it's enduring is a massive piece of the playoffs.
And Denver, it's just hard to see them endure. It's just
because two straight very difficult physical 7-game series, and now you're going to go face another difficult physical team. Like eventually, it's like you're like, yeah, we're on E, like I think that would be a huge advantage in Minnesota's favor. We can say Oklahoma City's had a tough series here, but at least they had a sweep the one before it, and so they're in the meat grinder of the playoffs now, but they also have more depth. And they have, that's just another thing where it's like, yeah, I think it'd be much more advantageous for Minnesota to play Denver than Oklahoma City. Like the Wolves, could they beat Oklahoma City? Absolutely, for sure. Like I just think that the odds are so stacked in their favor against Denver, where otherwise it's like, oh, you're really gonna have to earn this one against OKC.
Right. Any other Denver things? I don't have a ton.
I don't know. I don't
either. You know too much about.
There's only so many things to say. Like the Porter Jr. thing is just weird. Where he's hit some big shots in games, but like he also just looks some games they're like can't really play you.
Right.
Russell Westbrook would get a lot of open shots against Minnesota, and we'd see how many he put down.
Yeah. The only other thing I had is like it is a different coach. And I do think we're like
same defensive coach. Ryan Saunders still is largely managing the defense.
Yes, but I feel like there's more freedom to do more defensive things than it was previously. Like I don't think if it was Malone that I don't know, have 20% of Denver's defensive possessions been zone in this series. Like it's less. It's for sure. Like there are some inherent differences about, and if it is Denver that they're playing, I'll have Adam or somebody on who's been watching them closer and can do that. But I'm just saying, like from afar, and when I'm tapping into watching them, I do feel like I feel or notice differences, or it's less like I always thought of Denver as like very stringent and specific in what they were doing against Malone, and not against Malone, when Malone was the coach. And it's just it's like more open to change. I wish I would have thought this through and had more specific examples, but that's just like my off the top of my head feeling of like, it isn't just like an interim coach where I'm like, okay, they're doing the exact same shit. It doesn't feel that way to me. I don't know what to make of that from an X factor one way or the other. Like, we're giving them Adelman and Ryan a compliment here, but it's also not good to be in the Western Conference Finals with you have a new coach. Like, that's just not a great situation to be in. But it's a factor in this, right? You know, it'll be a storyline if it's Wolves Nuggets.
I definitely think we've seen, and they've talked about this, it's actually been a big storyline around Denver, is like it's been more player led, of like Jokic just having a really big say and he's saying a lot of his ideas and they're mixing them in, and David Adelman's like, I want him to talk more. Like, why?
Right.
It shows a lot of humility to be like, I don't care. He's the smartest player on the court. Yeah, like, we'll follow his ideas. Like, I'm not gonna be like, no, crazy. I don't like it. But I think that's a factor in that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised in that series if Jokic is like, no, I'm not just going to sit and like blitz and hedge out on every single Anthony Edwards screen for 44 minutes. And then at the end of the game, be like, did you get tired? Oh, yeah, I did. Let's mix it up. Let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. They won't all work, but this can't be our only answer. We can't show them the exact same thing.
Totally.
You know,
they should not blitz it every time. Like, play some drop. Let Ant like beat you from mid-range for which he might.
And if he hits like, you know, and then the Wolves usually can pull the screen up higher, and now it's a step in three, and you might be like, okay, that's tough, but maybe make him make one or two and then be like, okay, get out of it. You know, like these different kinds of things and switch something else. Okay, now a little zone. Okay, now at the end of the game here, now we're going to throw him a little bit more like the high wall look, you know, that kind of thing.
It's so physically taxing. As a big. It's like,
let alone being the hub of your offense.
Yeah, dude.
And having to do that. You know, like it's unbelievable that he does that. So
you're basically like sprinting up to the 3-point line, reaching down to the 3-point line, going back to the baseline, doing that out. Like, it is a cardiovascular workout for Nikola Jokic, who is.
And then they're like, hey, now bring the ball up the court.
Yeah, right.
You'll watch the Wolves will like have to move the ball around against it, and then like they'll like shoot a three, and then it'll be a long rebound out that Jokic didn't even really have a chance for, and then they'll move the ball again, and then they'll hit another three, and Jokic will just be like,
I know.
But then he has no choice. They're like, well, it's good defense. We have to play with some pace to get the ball and do like the Draymond, like kind of run it up dribble to get into your offense, you know, and then you score or you don't score. Now let's go do it again. You know, it's like you do not stop moving.
I feel like legitimately sad for him when he's up like blitzing and he gets like one of his like big ass mitts on the ball where they're trying to get in the pocket. He tips it away, grabs it, like hits it ahead to Westbrook or whatever for like a fast break, and he smokes the layup, and it's like, all right, I gotta do this again, you know? I legitimately feel bad for him at times watching the game because I'm like, man, you worked so hard for that, and it just led to nothing, and now you gotta do it again. It's tough, man. That's
team game. Everybody does things wrong, you know. We all miss shots. Nobody's trying to miss that layup.
Russ. Yeah, Russ is obviously that's an X factor that goes.
He's an X factor for every second he's on the court. For good and like he basically just describes himself as like, I'm just trying to bring chaos out there. It's like mission accomplished every single night, my guy. You know
what Britt called him like showing 16 and having to hit in blackjack is the perfect analogy for Westbrook, because it's like, sometimes you're gonna get a 5-4 3 or 2 and you're gonna be like, hell yeah, Russell Westbrook. And the rest of the time it's just like, give me your money, we're done here.
Yeah, you can literally like the dealer can be showing 7 and it can be 16, and then Russell will be like hit and you get a 2 and you're like, oh my god, and then Russell's like, hit again. It's like, no, we didn't have to hit there. We had it.
But he there'll be a pocket of time where he's a problem, for the Wolves too.
And you'll sit there and be like, yes, 18, we won the hand, you know, and then he's like, hit. I don't know. That's all. Go ahead.
Do you want Denver or Oklahoma City? Where do you want to go?
Where do I want to go? I don't know. It doesn't really matter to be honest. Potato in my mind. I like the city of Denver, but we've been there enough too. Like, as much as people don't like Oklahoma City, I've never been there, so like sometimes it's not bad to like just see somewhere else. Yeah.
it's Denver's a little bit easier and cheaper to.
Denver is significantly cheaper. That's for sure.
Yeah, I do think
more flight options, actual nonstops, all that stuff. Oklahoma City, it's like, you want a nonstop? Delta's got one a day. It's probably at a time that you have no interest in. You got it.
I do think I just like the people or know, actually I know some of the Oklahoma City people too. So I don't mean that to come with that. We know a lot of those guys. It'd be fun to hang out with them. I do think just from if the Wolves are going to go to the finals, it'd be really cool to see them really earn it against the Thunder. And, and you will have earned it too. I'm not saying it.
Nobody will look back and care how they did it, but I agree with you. The Warriors games were just okay. And as much as people want to be the reaction after the Warriors series was subdued because they're we know there's more. I think it was subdued of this was a foregone conclusion. They knew they were going to beat the Warriors. You could tell it right after game 2 where they were there's only one way this can go, and it's you did it. You absolutely did it. And the whole thing of the playoffs is putting yourself in position to be fortunate at some point. And they definitely got that this last series. But, I think had they beaten Steph or even a different team, they would have had a little bit more emotion behind it. I don't think it has everything to do with we were just here last year. I think it is we knew we were going to win.
What? It's respecting themselves enough to be we actually do think we're a contender. So if we think we're a contender, then we should have taken care of the busted Warriors in 5.
This team that frankly, if that was the team all year, they wouldn't have made the playoffs. That. So the Wolves are we know we should win that series, and we had to buckle down. We had to do the right things, and we did that, and that's awesome. But we know that, and I think certainly even if you just beat Jokic, you would feel different about it anyway. But it would be interesting. If it was a non-Aaron Gordon thing, it'd be okay, got fortunate again, and in the end, you won't look back at it and care. But it. But I agree with you.
For living it every day, covering it for us and for fans.
It'd be more fun. Yeah, it would be more fun. You could even tell, especially in game 2. Maybe in game 5, people got a little bit more excited because it was the clinching thing. But in game 2, I was Target Center's kind of dead, and the Wolves are up 15 because it's just what else was going to happen here? Yeah,
OKC will be a challenge and a hell of an accomplishment. To beat them if they do. And not that it's not an accomplishment to get to the Western Conference Finals, but it'll be if they win a series against the Thunder. I'm gonna have a lot of respect for this Wolves team because I have a lot of respect for I don't have respect for this Wolves team right now, but it'll be another step in the man. I bet you some of my podcasts in November sound super dumb now, and credit to the Wolves for growing and overcoming and. I would love to see the challenge of the Thunder, but either way, whatever it is, we'll be there. We'll be there covering it. You guys can obviously read Jace in the Pioneer Press, churning out a ton of great stuff. Seriously, man, I'm really loving the work that you're doing there. You guys can twincities.com or just follow Jace on Twitter as well. He's tweeting out all of his articles there. I'll see you at practice in an hour.
Can't wait. Another one of these. Hey, you don't know who you're playing, so what's going on? I can't tell you the 2 practices ahead of where they didn't know that they're playing Golden State. Yeah, you were out of town. They were the biggest waste of time I've ever, so I can't wait to go do it again. Let's go.
I'll see you there in a little bit. Again, you guys can follow Jace on Twitter at Jace Frederick. I think we'll do an episode on Monday with an Oklahoma City person or a Denver person based on who wins that game. Until then, he's Jace. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hard so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.